Veganism is a death sentence. Unless you know exactly what you're doing, if you revert from what we are, meat eaters, carnivores, to becoming a vegan, then you're going to not really live very long. Look, the star vegan at the moment is Greta Thunberg, and she's diminutive, she's undernourished, she's underformed, and she's what, 16-year-old teenager. You couldn't call her a robust person at all. She's totally undeveloped because of veganism, and no doubt if she continues that, she'll be lucky to make it to 40 years old, regardless what anyone says otherwise. That's just statistically a fact. Anyone can find out for themselves. The thing is, this story recently, eat less meat and all that sort of stuff, well, first start going around telling people what to do is wrong. But telling people how to behave themselves, give them advice and say what's better for you nutritionally speaking, and get some exercise and stuff like that, fine. But telling all these celebrities and whatever saying, oh, you should do this and should do that to save the planet, I don't know, they're talking out of their backside. They have no idea about the planet, no idea about how humans involved. And humans involved specifically over many thousands of hundreds of thousands of years. We're not going to the history of evolution of paleontology or what gives you the evidence, but humans evolved by eating meat at some stage. And it's best not to give it a time frame because it's always moving backwards. When humans began to really accelerate their development, we can actually say it was the ability to make fire is the number one thing. Ability to make fire was one big massive stepping stone in human development. Well, Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon could both make fire. So that means that at some stage, a long time back, they had a coexistent ancestor, which they both diverted. Some sort of thing happened, and a diversion happened, which was a drought about 500,000 years ago, according to Lyle Watson, a famous author and philosopher. And the drought that made humans in Africa, wherever they were, they had to sort of find another way of making a living, or find another way of sustaining their economy, which was just hunting and gathering. As far as we know, we assume it's hunting and gathering. It could be villages, but it's such a long time ago, we can't really tell. And there's no real way of telling because of all sorts of things, erosion and ice ages and tectonic upheavals and all sorts of obliterated so much evidence around the coasts of the world that no one can say for certain how it was, and that's a fact. That is one fact that is a certainty. There's no uncertainty about paleontological or archaeological or human history because of the ice ages on 400 feet of water difference between then and now. But when it comes to veganism and vegetarianism, which is now being promoted as a way of saving the world, it's not. It's a way of cutting back on humanity because it means that we evolved as meat eaters. The amount of why we become strong and intelligent and conquered the world, if you like, is because we developed skills, and the nutrition from the meat gave us what we are, integral to our being. We didn't live off vegetables. Earlier primates like chimps and that, they live off vegetables, but they still eat meat. But when they branched out from that line, so they said 6 million years ago, never mind the contentious natures of any paleontological study, let's look at forget the time frame, look at what happened then. Some being, a primate, stood up, learned to use their hands, make tools, and dominated the place, dominated the world, learned to defend themselves and kill other animals with tools, or weapons, if you like. So we become a weapon culture. That then allowed for them to defend themselves and kill meat. Because they could kill meat, large animals, for meat, it means they could really fill up on an awful lot of meat in one go. The whole family of them could knock a buffalo in the head, and because they got tools to do it, they learned how to throw spears a long time ago, and they ate meat. And that built up the capacity, the strength and size, and the brain power. The most important thing, it built up the size of the brain of the human, because they're solving all these problems. Because you're solving problems, the ability to solve problems accumulates. It amplifies. It thinks it's exponential across the generations because it's passed down through generations, more and more skill and more and more experience. It's passed down through the storylines, if you like, that the Australian Aboriginals have, and any Aboriginal people have a storyline, which is their history. And now history is denied to children, it's extremely cruel. But when at some stage, different beings, and humans are fragmented into all different type of breeds, I prefer to call them, than species. Breeds is a far better term to look at what different humans were over the cross diaspora around the world over the last 500,000 years at least. It's better to look at them on breeds, because I won't go into that just now. It's complex. Nonetheless, the two things will happen which we know for certain is that Cro-Magnon man developed around about the same time as Neanderthal man, although the old Cro-Magnon man didn't actually appear in Europe, so it says. But then the Ice Age telling knocks all a lot of evidence has knocked it, squashed and destroyed and crushed under an Ice Age to say when Cro-Magnon man appeared in Europe 10,000 or what it was 2 years ago. I mean, he returned to Europe. So, it was nothing lived in Europe that long ago because it was covered in snow. So, they're making a lot of furphies, if you like. They're false observations, if you like, that not based in common sense. But when they arrived here and they combined with Neanderthal man, the reason the Cro-Magnon man become the greater population, because it's more attractive to the female for a start, but that's beside the point. The more attractive male and the more smarter one with better tools and that always attracts a female. That's called capitalism for you, and it's a male-dominated thing. Whether females like it or not, that's how it is, because you have to prove yourself as a man to win a woman. If you can't prove yourself as a man some way, either capital instincts, hunting instincts, or fighting instincts, you're not going to go very successful in the natural world finding a woman. You're not going to get one. You're going to be mumped off pretty quickly before you find one. But it was meat eating. When the Cro-Magnon man, it was fish. They follow the coast and estuaries mostly, become hunters and are good at skilled at hunting for fish and catching them en masse, and possibly, and this is only theory, my fanciful theory, they become like Atlantis, because Atlantis was there. We know now it's all under the sea, 400 feet of sea, and they maybe developed this high advanced culture a long time ago. It's not even speculation anymore. It's all archaeological evidence is there. But that's one thing. And they developed this fantastic brain power and whatever. And Neanderthals, who said they died out 30 odd years ago, they've actually died out. They didn't die out. They mean the shape of the skulls and that never wasn't existent anymore. But the Neanderthal lived on inside the next bodies of people being bred with the interbreeding between Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal, and chances are that maybe a disease wiped out Neanderthal, or maybe some sort of disease spread through sex or whatever may have been the cause of Neanderthals dying out. So they didn't die out because they were hunted out. That doesn't make sense, because they're made for a pretty powerful sort of beast, a pretty powerful sort of people. But the Neanderthals followed the herds and the beasts and the elephants and the mammoths, buffaloes, and the Cro-Magnon followed the fish and stuff like that. They learned to become fishermen and stuff like that, and therefore Cro-Magnon learned to use boats and stuff like that, and Neanderthals didn't. Now, that's a short story of why we're meat eaters, not vegans or vegetarians. And the reason everyone's saying they be vegetarian is because they want to make people small and weak, like Greta Thunberg. And so if you're small and weak, can easily be dominated. And if you're easily dominated, you don't stand a chance, because the world works by survival of the fittest and strongest, whether we like it or not. So feminists who are working to destroy the normal metrosexual man for their own nihilistic ends, because they're nihilists, that's what they are. Feminists are actually nihilists with psychological problems. There's no good beating around the bush about this. They're nihilists with psychological problems. Some sort of psychological motion disturbance must cause them to hate males, and that makes no sense at all. For a female to hate males, it goes against the biological order, because males can get on females' nerves, a certainty, vice versa. But nonetheless, generally they come together. And But that's it. But to go to a vegetarian diet, you do not get the micronutrients, the minerals you need, unless you know exactly what you're doing. Or like some Indians are successful vegetarians because they've done that for thousands of years, and they've been lack of meat has made them learn scientifically. Scientific culture allowed them to learn, grow the food that gives them the nutrients that meat doesn't provide. Otherwise, you're going to die as a Westerner, a Viking, whatever. Greta Thunberg, the best example I've ever seen in my life, not to be a vegan or a vegetarian. The best example. You want to die young? Be a vegan. Want to die young? Be a vegetarian. Don't eat meat. Because that is the plan. That is the plan. And who is it aimed at? White folk only. It's not aimed at Chinese or Muslims or anyone else, black people, just aimed at white people. Feminist, what's it all about? But never mind, that's another thing, that's an adjunct. But becoming a vegan or vegetarian and encourage your kids to do so is one way of ending your genetic line. And it's called genocide. But it's very cleverly done this time. It's an abomination against humanity to say don't eat meat, because anthropologically speaking, as an evolving species, we evolved because we hunted and gathered. We hunted meat, gathered herbs. Vegetables are a relatively new thing. I won't go into this, show that right now. And that's it. Beware of the propaganda, the cursed propaganda saying, don't eat meat, I'll become a vegan, become a vegetarian. That's so they want you to end your genetic potential and end your genetic line. That's all about.